Hey there. I wanted to read to you today a passage from Matthew 11, verses 2 through 6. It says, "Now when John heard in prison about the deeds of the Christ, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, 'Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another?' And Jesus answered them, 'Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk. Lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor have good news preached to them. And blessed is the one who is not offended by me.'" Well, first I wanted to note that John is sending his messengers because he's in prison, and he's in a pretty low circumstance. And then he hears about Jesus doing these great things, and then so sends these messengers to say, "Hey, are you the one that I'm so excited about, that I have been preaching and prophesying about?" And when the messengers asked this of Jesus, Jesus performed a lot of miracles right before their eyes, and told them about how the good news has been preached to the poor. Just like John the Baptist had been prophesying, and how back in the Old Testament there were many prophecies about this happening. So then comes the next verse, verse 6, "And blessed is the one who is not offended by me." And I was thinking, what offense would one take in receiving the news of Jesus doing all these great miracles? Well, when you're sitting in jail and looking around at your own circumstances, it can be very easy to be offended by Jesus doing great things for others. John was in a low place. He was in prison and not in a good circumstance. And it would be very easy for him to sit around thinking, "Well, I've done what's right. Why am I being punished?" And to be offended by the fact that Jesus is doing these great miracles for all these other people, but not for him. Jesus wasn't sending word saying, "Hey, I'm breaking you out of jail." He sent word saying, "Look at these great things that I'm doing for the people," and how God's prophetic messages are being fulfilled right now. And that was the good news. He didn't change anything in John's circumstance. In fact, very shortly afterwards, John was going to be beheaded. They didn't know this at the time, but that is what happened to John the Baptist. And his circumstances never got better at that point. But he had been faithful to do what God had asked of him. He spoke the message the Lord had given him as a prophet, and he was a good and faithful servant. Though he was a good and faithful servant, the Lord did not bless the rest of his life and circumstances and give him wealth and honor or good health or anything like that. He got beheaded. So it could have been easy for John to be offended when he heard about the good things that Jesus was doing for others, and not seeing that happen necessarily in his own life where he was. And so the way that I took this, for me personally, is when I see my own life in circumstances where I'm asking God for healing. Those other of you might be asking God for some other big things, and looking around and seeing that God is working in great, wonderful ways in lives around you and across the world, that miracles are happening, and the good news is being proclaimed. And you might wonder, well, I'm being faithful. Why is my circumstance not changing? God didn't promise that, but he did promise to always be near us. And I can tell you from experience, I feel that. God, throughout my circumstance, has been near me every single step of the way, and it hasn't been easy. He's never promised a pain-free life. He hasn't promised us that we will have mansions on earth. He's promised us rewards in heaven. But those earthly circumstances and rewards may or may not be there. But we are not to be offended when we see God working in great ways around us and not necessarily answering our prayers the way that we want them to be. So anyways, I hope that's encouraging to you guys. No matter what circumstance you are in, draw near to the Lord and He will draw near to you. Trust in Him. Take your hands and keep them open to receive what God does want to give to you, because it's always better than what we can even ask or imagine. All right.